War III started months ago? That would seem, if not plausible, at least possible. And in this context, it remains hard to believe that we're returning Donald Trump to the White House. There are just so many reasons why this seems like a bad idea. To name only one, he is the sort of president who thinks that Pete Hegseth should run our Department of Defense. As most of you know, the list of Hegseth's disqualifying sins is so long and miscellaneous that it's hard to perceive his nomination as anything other than a terrible mistake. That is, until one recalls that Trump put forward Matt Gaetz to run the Department of Justice.
So there's a lot of Trump supporters out there. This is going to beg the question, what do they see in someone like Matt Gaetz or in someone like Pete Hegseth? Do they view allegations of abuse as something that disqualifies an individual from serving a public office? It seems they don't, based on them supporting Trump in the first place. Do they just tend to think that these allegations are all just false, that they're just like political hit jobs?
Happily, Gaetz is suffering the fate of so many who come within range of Trump's enthusiasm, humiliation, and oblivion. That is, until he resurfaces selling gold-plated rifles or starts a podcast with Andrew Tate. Trump's nominations really do seem like some sort of troll or act of vandalism. I mean, even the optics are ridiculous. Both Gaetz and Hegseth could easily be cast as villains in a Batman movie. I
just wanted to point out how refreshing it is to have someone like Sam, who is still willing to analyze what's going on in Trump's cabinet picks and to try to be objective about it, when we have people like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, these people that seem so obsessed with power, Bezos. They're not willing to criticize him. They're not willing to really look at things. They appear to have just kissed the ring of power. So it's so refreshing to see someone that has a platform in the way that Sam does, to have them continually critiquing Trump and analyzing and saying just how abnormal this all is.
Seen, but perhaps even more dangerous, we have the prospect of Tulsi Gabbard serving as Director of National Intelligence. Her well-documented patience, if not fondness, for the Assad regime isn't aging very well. And if you think she's been smeared on this point, just listen to her describe her meeting with Assad on Joe Rogan's podcast. They discuss it for a full 10 minutes in a clip that's available on YouTube. It's from about 5 years ago, where she was responding to all the criticism she'd received for speaking so diplomatically about Assad. The level of naivete and frank delusion on display here, given who we knew Assad to be at that point, is just astounding. So when the world could really use a shining city on a hill, that is a healthy liberal democracy capable of leading not merely by force, but by example, we've decided to return a man to the presidency who refers to his fellow citizens, all the Democrats who didn't vote for him, as vermin and scum. We can't pretend that this is normal. And it has been, frankly, nauseating to see the parade of business leaders, many of whom despise Trump and his effect on our politics, race to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the man's ring and much else.
I question if Sam will be in danger if he continues to speak out in the way that he is. We've seen a weird kind of shift in power since the election. What he's describing is, these business leaders, these people who don't like Trump, but they are trying to be on his good side, hoping that it will benefit them financially, highlights that they're racing to Florida to basically suck up to Trump. And so again, kind of just a weird shift that we've seen in power dynamics. Sam wrote a book about lying, where he just talks about being honest, and maybe that's something that's driving him in his podcast and with what he's saying and speaking out on now.
It's tempting to ask these captains of industry, all of whom are rich beyond imagining, what's the point of having fuck you money if you never say fuck you? I mean, this really was an opportunity to say, we're rich enough and our companies will be fine. This is still a country of laws. And if the president targets us in any way, our lawyers will be ready and real journalists will be eager to tell the story. I'm not betting that everything Trump does in his second term will be bad. and I'm certainly hoping for the best. But all these billionaires should understand that normalizing Trump and Trumpism by purchasing million-dollar tables at the inauguration isn't without risk of embarrassment. Just take a moment to reflect on how this will look if any of the darker possibilities of a second Trump term are realized.
So Sam writes this. I've done a little bit of research. It looks like Sam's net worth, just according to things I've seen online, is about $12 million, which that's enough for him to live comfortably. But he could get tied up in lawsuits that could completely decimate his net worth. So him saying this, I'd argue that he has more bravery than some of these billionaires that are tiptoeing and that are trying to just seek favor. People like Bezos, for example. Trump maybe would go into lawsuits with people that he thinks are speaking bad about him. He's done it with media outlets before. But what Sam's pointing out, it's like, what's the point of having $200 billion, someone like Jeff Bezos, if they're not willing to try to provide a check on power? If Trump is doing a lot of controversial stuff when he, even after the election, is saying that Liz Cheney needs to go before a military tribunal, who's in a better place to speak out against that than someone who is extremely powerful financially? Sam, again, even though he's comfortable, he's not. Sam's a lot closer to you and I, to people that are regular middle class individuals. He's a lot closer to us than he is someone like Bezos. He doesn't have the power and the wealth that others do that could push back, but probably will not because they're concerned about accruing more hundreds of billions. And Sam's arguing that some of these people are going to be embarrassed by historians in the future. Their legacies are going to be tarnished. People like Zuckerberg, people like Bezos, where I'm going to argue historians are going to look pretty favorably on Sam and how he critiques Elon Musk, how he critiques Trump, how he critiques Andrew Tate. And he's really not afraid to just express the truth. Also, I'll argue how he critiques Islam, even when that's not a popular thing to do among many liberals, right? But Sam will just critique Islam all day long.